Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Thursday upload from your boys at the Buffalo Happy Hour. And today we have a little fancy episode for you.
The fanciest, but because we're being fancy, we have to ensure that we speak about our sponsor for today's episode.
Yes, so we have a sponsor. Thank you very much to Addie's Wine and Spirits for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't heard about Addie's and you've been watching our podcast, no idea where you've been, because that's literally all that we talk about. Every single thing that they do, we love that they do it. I will buy a bottle from their shop over any other shop. And do you know why?
I mean, they actually have it.
One, they actually have it.
Yeah,
and
their
two,
selection's huge.
they're not a big box place either. They are not a chain. They are mom and pop, basically. Actually, it's a dad and son store. And they are just so about the customer, and they will never do anything just to make a quick buck on their end. They will try to get as whatever whiskey that you want, whatever wine that you want. They have an insane whiskey collection, an insane Scotch collection, and even bigger than both of those, they have an extremely large wine selection with an in-house sommelier. So if you ever need any type of liquor, highly recommend going to their space.
Yes. We have been doing work with them for, about a year now.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to see our relationship grow. So, in all of that being said, we appreciate their sponsor, and we are looking forward to a continued partnership and not just a sponsorship, because we have a lot of things in the works with them, between interviews and then different events, and then how we can pick up product, and then how we can make product and learn more about the industry, learn the ins and outs. And it's just overall an extremely huge resource for us, because then we're allowed to provide you better content that's actually more educated, more well-versed, and it allows us to branch out into different fields that we never thought possible.
Yeah. So if you want to help the podcast, if you want to help them, please download the Addie's app in the Google Play Store and the Apple Play Store, or whatever it's called.
It's the App Store.
That's Store? That's weird. I
That's
don't
all
like that
it is.
at all.
It's an app store. It's the same thing.
They don't want to put their name on it?
No.
Download their app, Addie's Wine and Spirits. And if you do follow this podcast and you do watch on Wednesdays, we do a Wednesday whiskey review every single Wednesday. And Addie's is kind enough to extend to our listeners the 10% discount on the whiskey that we review that week. So if we don't like the whiskey, which have been some situations where we don't like the whiskey, they also allowed us to pick a whiskey within their store that we can then give the 10% discount to our listeners. So if you're out of state, that's fine. They will ship. But again, download the Addie's Wine and Spirits app, type in BHH code, BHH, in the checkout to get 10% off. And please remember to always drink responsibly. So today, Mike, what do we got?
We're talking etiquette.
Etiquette.
Etiquette, yes. Etiquette on the whiskey industry side of things.
Fancy.
Now, there's a lot to whiskey, right? Not only from the glass, like what we've already discussed, which is the Glencairn, but about how not to offend somebody in the realm of spirits.
Do you ever have a situation where you were nervous going into a bar ordering whiskey, or no?
No, because I didn't. So, short answer, no. Long answer, which we'll dive into because we have time, because guess what? We own this thing. When I didn't know how to properly order whiskey, I just named the brand and said, please place that in a glass. And I didn't know that there's a way to say, for example, may I have a double of Jameson neat? So that will allow you to kind of show the bartender that not only do you know how to order, but you also know exactly what you want, how you want it, and you may have been around the block.
Yeah.
So there's also, outside of a bar, etiquette in general when it comes to whiskey. Same with wine, same with fine eating, same with table manners, right? How to dress, etc. There's an etiquette at play, and that's what we're going to dive into this week.
Yes. The most important thing, though, right off the top, is how great we look. No, I'm just kidding. We do look very good because of the etiquette conversation, but that's not really what I wanted to say. The number one thing is the correct way to drink whiskey is how you want to drink it. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Just because Mike and I drink it neat out of a Glencairn doesn't mean you literally can't drink it in a bucket of ice out of a solo cup. If that's how you want to consume your whiskey, by all means do it. I don't care. Mike doesn't care. It impacts us no way. If that's the only way that you can consume whiskey, do it. I don't care. Nobody cares.
No,
it's just, are you enjoying it? And you are now part of the community that likes whiskey.
Out of love and camaraderie, we will rip you for it.
100%.
But You're doing it. We're proud of you, and we're going to allow that to occur. Although we're probably going to offer you opinion on how to do it better.
Correct. But in a less severe situation, if you enjoy whiskey only in a cocktail, by all means, have whiskey cocktails for the rest of your life. That is not what we're doing here. We're not here to shame anybody. We're not here to tell you one way or the other.
Shame.
You can enjoy whiskey however you want to enjoy whiskey. What options are there for ordering? You say neat. What does neat mean?
So neat is like this. Just the spirit in the glass. And I've referenced this in a story with a bartender who serves beer, and the establishment absolutely does not pride themselves on whiskey at all. They're not a whiskey bar. They're like a... you go there to watch a UFC fight, you wear tap out, and you order beer.
Nice.
That's what it is. So... neat is just in the glass, the spirit alone. There's nothing in it. There's no straw, there's no ice, there's no other ingredients, additives, nothing. It's just the spirit in a glass. That is neat. You can also order it on the rocks. On the rocks means they're going to place, hopefully, one ice cube that's a large, slow melt cube and or sphere into your rocks glass. Pour the spirit over that. You can dictate how much you want, whether it's a single or a double pour, which means 1 or 2 ounces generally. Pour that in the glass. They slide it over to you. You catch it in your hand like a Bond's film. You enjoy your spirit. The other way that you can have it is a lot of rocks. A lot of people say speed bumps. And when you say speed bumps, then they typically don't have a single large slow melt ice cube. Then they'll just do like the normal cubes that you can make out of any ice tray that you see in your fridge at home. They'll put like 2 to 4 of those inside of a glass, pour the spirit inside, and then hand it to you. So I keep it simple. I don't like that much ice at all, if ever. With my spirit, I order everything neat.
So when you're talking about whiskey, we talked a little bit about this during the proof section of the of our Thursday uploads. If you're interested to hear more about whiskey proof, go back and check that out because it was very informative. But what you should take away from that conversation is you should know what proof you like to consume, because if you order the wrong proof or too high of a proof, you won't be enjoying your experience as much as you would if you ordered a proof that would probably best suit your palate. So whiskey proofs normally range from 80 proof to like 120 proof. They can go higher than that, but generally 80 to 120 is where most of the whiskeys are. If you order a 120 proof and you're new to the whiskey world, you'll be so turned off by whiskey that you'll never want to have it again, because it is very off-putting to consume something with that much alcohol without expecting it.
And then also, as a caveat to that comment, if you order 120 and you can handle the 120, but you don't know what your tolerance is for whiskey in general because you are still somewhat new, then you may not be turned off by the ethanol, but you're going to be so obliterated within 2 pours or 2 servings that you won't be able to drive home, you won't be able to drink responsibly, be a good person, and then you'll probably litter, which goes against our entire mission statement, but it's going to directly impact the overall time that you're having with the spirit. You want to make sure that you're ahead of the curve in regards to enjoying a spirit, because it's always going to do its job, right? It'll always do its job. You need to make sure that you do your job. So it's a 2-part. You don't want to get turned off by spirits, but then you also don't want to be irresponsible when you're out, especially because it's going to impact you differently than, say, wine, than, say, seltzers, and, say, beer.
Mm-hmm. One thing that you should remember, too, is that it's not uncommon or looked down upon to ask the bartender what his recommendation is. They normally, if they're in a whiskey bar, they understand whiskey pretty well. And if you ask them or tell them, listen, no idea what I'm doing. I'm new here. I don't know what I like. I just want to try something good. Mm-hmm. They will have recommendations for you to try out for your first couple drinks, because if you order something, again, it goes back to the proof point, but there's various types of whiskeys, which we'll cover in a future episode. But if you order an Islay Scotch, which is extremely peaty, not knowing what that is, again, you're not going to want to drink whiskey again because you think that that's all whiskey is. But the bartender will be like, okay, instead of that, let's go to the Devil's River Small Batch, or let's go to Larceny Weeded, or something like that. There's various types of whiskeys for your tasting profile So always remember, if you are stuck or you don't know what to order, ask the bartender, because that's what they're there for. And you should be conversing with the bartender too, which is also going to our next point about how to act in the bar.
Yeah, basically just be a good person and imagine yourself in their shoes. So if you are looking for advice, or say you know a ton about whiskey and you're there for the experience, the way to enhance your experience with that establishment and bartender is by asking questions, because that's how you literally form trust with someone. So allow them to use their expertise. And conversely, say you're a bourbon steward. If you're hosting an event, you don't want to just saturate everybody with so much knowledge that it takes away from someone else's experience, because they could potentially take that as you talking down to them. Meet everyone at whatever level they're at. So what if you know everything in the world? No one cares. Answer the questions that are being asked, and then maintain that sort of professionalism and meet everybody at their level, so that you can just inform them with where they're at and then keep them engaged and entertained, because that'll leave a good impression on them, whoever it is, and allow them to come back because it was so welcoming and the community was great, and et cetera, et cetera. It'll just lead to a better overall experience for everyone, not only you as a steward, but for your guests and the ones you're hosting for.
Yeah. We're in the bar. We ordered our whiskey, and Mike, all of our listeners said that they want to try it neat.
Okay.
That's what they want to do.
Okay.
What's the first thing that you do when you get your whiskey neat from the bartender?
You nose it.
How do you properly nose?
A proper nose.
Okay, so before we get into this, if you're at Applebee's and you're ordering a Jack Daniels, don't do this. You're gonna look like a fool. This isn't meant to, like, if I go to Red Robin, I'm not nosing my whiskey, like, that's not the situation for it.
Well, on Veterans Day, that's what I did, Eric, from off Free Burger.
Thank you for your service. So
That's right. Thank me. Thank me louder.
So if you go to a whiskey bar and you're trying to enjoy the whiskey experience you had the conversation with the bartender, they know what you're doing, how do you nose your whiskey?
I will demonstrate, you will talk.
Excuse me? So as you nose your whiskey, what you should be doing, and we're going to get a close-up of Mike's schnoz here, you should be putting your nose near the glass. Don't put it in the glass. If you got 120 proof whiskey and you put your nose in the glass and inhale, you're going to pass out. I'm not kidding. Don't do it. So what you want to do is you want to put the glass up to your nose. You're like a flight attendant here. Like, buckle your seatbelt. We're going to hit turbulence.
Correct.
You're going to put your nose near the glass, and you want to rotate it from nostril to nostril. The reason that you want to do that is because primarily one nostril will pick up ethanol and one nostril will pick up a lot of the smells. So when you're doing that and you rotate, start inhaling, try to inhale a little bit, but when you're doing that, open your mouth too. Have you ever been in a car and you open up one window when you're going down the thruway and you hear all that, like all that air coming in and it has nowhere to escape? If you don't open your mouth, the smell has nowhere to go. So it's going to be circling in your nasal cavity and it won't have anywhere to go. And part of smelling is your taste buds. So if you open up your mouth, that whole circulation of in your nose and then out your mouth is going to help you understand the smell of the whiskey so much better.
Correct.
So you're smelling it. I would twirl it a little bit, look at the legs of the whiskey, figure out how viscous it is, look at that, do all that analysis, and then how do you taste?
Hold it in your mouth. You can bite it and chew it a little bit, which will emphasize a lot of the flavors. Swallow. Make sure you get a proper swallow, and then wait.
What do you mean proper swallow?
Did you ever swallow incorrectly?
Yes. And it goes down like a literal ice cube in your throat.
Yeah, there's that.
How does that happen?
Some people get excited, like everyone who's ever been Irish ever. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it can go down the wrong pipe. Sometimes you can just get a bad swallow. Take your time with it, which is why you want to hold it in your mouth a little bit. You can chew it. And then which I understand chewing a liquid makes almost no sense. However, if you do chew it, it breaks open a lot more. The experience does change. And then you swallow, wait, and then experience the initial taste. Let the ending note basically endure itself. Go through that whole experience, see how it feels, look at the whiskey while you're doing that. Have everything come full circle. You want to use as many senses as humanly possible when you're trying something new, especially for the first time. which is why we like doing Wednesday Whiskey Review so much, because it allows us to try so many different spirits, but we're continuously repeating the same process. And at this point, from a viewer standpoint, it almost looks like we're not even doing anything except just drinking and talking, but there's so many things we're subconsciously doing that's second nature, some of which is chewing, proper nose, etc., that whole experience is different and unique with each different spirit, which is why we like whiskey so much, because that's the whole point of it. And that's why people are attracted to it. It's just very intimidating to start, which, again, is why we're doing this video.
So, kind of summarize, after you've tried your whiskey, you've walked into the bar, you've talked with the bartender, you've ordered your whiskey, you want to try it neat, you do all what Mike and I were just saying about how you should nose it, you should taste it, and you should let it sit for a little bit. I cannot emphasize this enough. Remember what you drink as much as possible, because if you like something, there is a vast majority of whiskeys that are similarly tasting to that whiskey. So if you really like a high proof rye that is 90 or 100% rye whiskey, there's a lot of whiskeys out there that follow that same tasting profile. And to that point, there's a lot of whiskeys out there that are just slightly different from that tasting profile that can get you the ability to expand your horizons much simpler and at a much easier transition to like bourbon. Like if you want to try a bourbon after that, you can do a high rye bourbon where it's a majority is corn, but there's a high percentage of rye in there. So understand what you're drinking, take mental notes on what aspects you liked of it, because the next time you go to the bar, you can say, hey, remember me from last time? I really liked that Whistle Pig. Can you give me something different? Because I want to try something different that's similar to that because I liked it so much.
Absolutely.
So let us know if you have any other tips for whiskey etiquette. This is our take on how we would suggest you approach whiskey for the first time, or if you're a seasoned whiskey veteran, just basically don't be a dick. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
There's so many different people that are just trying whiskey for the first time, and if you are so seasoned that you don't need this video, good for you, but don't discount people that aren't the same as you and are trying it for the first time, because it is very intimidating. There's a lot of differences between this and like beer. If you're trying beer for the first time, probably the beer snobs out there will be like, Derek, you're 100% wrong because it's the exact same. And yes, I understand that, but beer is less intimidating than whiskey is.
Way less.
So just don't be a dick. If you're trying whiskey for the first time, don't be a snob. Don't nose your whiskey in Applebee's. Just be a good person. That's all that we ask.
What else is new?
Exactly. Well, thank you everybody for listening to today's episode. Again, thank you Addie's for sponsoring today's episode. If you have not done it already, please download their app, Addie's Wine and Spirits, on Google Play and the App Store on Apple. Nailed it that time. Be jealous. But yeah, so if you're going to a whiskey bar and you are ordering and experimenting with whiskey and using all these tips, please remember to always drink responsibly, be a good person, and Michael,
Do not litter.
we're out.